Okay, we'll go ahead and kick this off. My name is Dan Kerber. I'm a first year here at Yale SOM. I was a 2011 grad of the United States Military Academy, served as an infantry officer in the Army for 8 years, most recently as a company commander. And I'm going to lead this as the moderator. I'd like to say to just any attendees, please go ahead and start submitting questions, and then I'm going to push it to the panelists to introduce themselves. Go ahead, Elena, if you want to kick us off.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Elena Fagan, and I'm still active duty in the Coast Guard. I went to the Coast Guard Academy and graduated in 2011. And I've been involved in search and rescue coordination and pollution response. And I was a deck officer on a ship. And my most recent assignment was actually stationed here in New Haven, Connecticut, doing marine environmental protection. And after school, I will be doing my payback tour either at Coast Guard headquarters in the budget office or as a base comptroller somewhere.
Great, thanks. Jason, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jason Lapadula. I graduated NYU 2012, majored in music, and then subsequently joined the Marine Corps and was an infantry officer. My most recent job in the military, I led a strike cell in Afghanistan and pretty much got out right after that. So applied to schools while deployed. So if anyone has questions about that, feel free to ask. I am currently out, and I am also a joint degree student with the Jackson Institute for Global Affairs, graduating in 2021.
Great. Katie, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I am Katie Kettering. I am a second-year MBA student at Yale SOM. I am former Army. I graduated from West Point in 2011 as well, served 7 years active duty, and then switched into the reserves. So I'm still a drilling reservist if people have questions about that during school. I did a summer internship with McKinsey in consulting, and will return to them full-time post our graduation, virtual graduation in May.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. And Vipul, if you want to bring us home.
Hey guys, Vipul Sharma, a 2007 graduate from the Air Force Academy. I flew C5s, MC-12s, and did a couple of instructor tours. Most recently, working at the Air Force Academy, teaching cadets how to fly. And I'm still in the Air Force Reserves flying C5s out of Springfield, Massachusetts. So I can also speak about what it's like to be a drilling reservist. And I'm a first-year MBA student here.
Great, thanks. Hey, so I'm seeing some questions roll in. I think the first one, though, just to kind of set the stage, is just go through in maybe the same order and talk briefly about why you chose Yale SOM.
Sure. So I did have personal reasons. My husband's also active duty stationed at the Coast Guard Academy, less than an hour from Yale. And so that worked out well. But besides that, I don't like being pushy or anything, but I was apprehensive about Yale before visiting. And once I visited, everyone was really kind and just a really great student body. So you could say I kind of fell in love with everyone here. And so I love the mission, and I feel like most students will probably have that same answer of educating for business and society. And I've always liked that aspect of focusing on doing public good. And it's kind of a laundry list. They're probably the top reasons I chose Yale.
So I saw a question just about joint degree track, so I'll try to roll that in as well. So I was looking at, broadly was looking at programs that had both strong MBA programs as well as good international affairs programs. I really liked Yale because of the small size. And where I went undergrad was pretty large. I wanted a smaller community. And then kind of similar to Elena, I was really drawn to the mission. right? So serving business and society, looking to going into public sector or nonprofit stuff after graduating. And so to kind of expand on that, so the joint degree program, it's 3 years for me. So I did my first year at the Jackson Institute. Between Jackson and starting at SOM, I worked for the World Food Program in the Congo, working on monitoring and evaluation as well as some other stuff. And then this year, this internship I'm going to be doing this summer is sort of doing some satellite intelligence and through a satellite technology company, and then looking to transition into international, either an international organization or something else. Last thing I just want to mention real quick, I'm also doing some work with the World Bank currently this semester. So just some options for those who are looking into that program specifically.
So YSOM for me, very similar to Elena. I was excited about the student body. I felt like transitioning from the military where it had a strong community feel, I wanted the similar environment, and I felt like there was a lot of support amongst students at SOM. Regardless of the fact that it's a business school, I feel like at some business schools, it seems very cutthroat and competitive. Not to say that people at SOM aren't competitive people, but I would say they're also very supportive throughout all types of processes, to include recruiting, which for me was a big deal since this was the first time I was going to be recruiting for a job in my life ever, and not really knowing what that looked like or how I was going to get support. It was nice to see that students helped each other through that process instead of just competed with each other. Yeah, I would say that's the biggest reason why SOM was really the people. There were some other like more personal reasons, similarly with financial aid, et cetera. Also, I thought that it was a really good program, just generally speaking. And then I would say lastly, the mission for business or leaders in business and society. I felt like the leadership aspect was something that was really intriguing to me. And the last point I'll make kind of circles back to Jason, which is the one Yale. Being able to take classes outside of SOM was super appealing to me. So I'm taking a class right now taught by General McChrystal at the Jackson Institute on leadership. It's a fascinating class, but you also can do that at any school. So we have other veterans. There's a vet club leader, Nick Rackley, taking Chinese and electrical engineering. And so the array of classes you can take is really broad. And so I'd say that was something really appealing to me, coming from a place where I wasn't sure what kinds of classes I was going to want to take as a part of my MBA. And so having the option to take any class I wanted was pretty cool, I thought. So.
Yeah, and for me, just to kind of, repeat some stories, I felt like this was the best place that I was going to fit in when I was looking at places I wanted to apply for my MBA. And specifically, just the vets club here has been phenomenal. When I was interviewing, there was a vet that actually offered to sit down with me, go through my application, do a mock interview, and that was very helpful. And then since coming here, the vets club has been phenomenal in terms of second years, like Katie helping me recruit for internships, and then alumni vets who've been just amazing in terms of sitting down and trying to figure out what you want to do. You know, I had looked at coming to Yale and I was kind of enamored with this place, and it was a dream school of mine. And I hadn't given too much thought in terms of what I was going to do afterwards. And I've really found that talking to my other classmates, there's a huge diverse background. You know, other MBA programs, you might have your traditional MBA roles that come in before business school, come to get their MBA, and then go do something that's a quote unquote cliche business or post MBA job. But here, you know, I have someone in my learning team. She worked at an art museum in Chicago prior to coming here, and she's probably one of our best students. You have a bunch of people from the nonprofit and public sector. So it's just a really diverse student body. And I think because of that, I found it to be a very rich experience.
Awesome. So we are getting just a dancing plethora of questions coming in, which is exactly what we want. I'm gonna open up this question because it was a question that I also had before coming in. And I don't know if we'll have time for all panelists to answer every question. So if this is something that speaks strongly to you, go ahead and unmute and just send it. So one of the questions I'm pursuing an MBA is to look for opportunities to participate in the free market and have social discourse? And how has SOM encouraged that for you? I think that's a really important question that a lot of vets are concerned about. So does anybody want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. I'll answer it. So clearly the populations are different, right? I think everyone who is watching this right now I hope at least doesn't assume that, you know, their military experience and the social circles that you travel in your military experience aren't a one-for-one swap for, you know, Yale SOM. But I do think that SOM through some particular things that SOM does to set you up for like maybe smaller environments do help create a better environment for social discourse. I don't know how other business schools do it, but I think one of the things that Vipul alluded to, right, learning teams. So you have, you know, 8 or 9 people that you're kind of linked to throughout your first year for those core classes. And I at least think that having discourse at that level, at the smaller level, when you can get into the nuance for maybe why, and I don't know if this is the question that the person who asked is trying to get towards, but I find that those smaller groups, you're able to convey more nuanced points where you might disagree with someone rather than the broad, you know, oh, I think this way about a particular topic, whether it's politics or, you know, something else, right? And you feel this way, and so we're just going to bet heads. I think having SOM set up those smaller sort of groups really helps kind of expand the social dialogue.
Awesome, thanks. Really great answer. Okay, let's move on to, there's a question, this is a big one that comes up in the vet panels normally, talking about the GI Bill and typical post-MBA options. So, like, I know this may not apply to Elena because you're still active, but would one of you like to address kind of what your experience with the GI Bill is, how easy that's gone for you, and what that looks like?
So I can grab this one. I actually don't qualify for 100% of the GI Bill, but I will say I would like to highlight something that SOM does, which is the unlimited matching that they started doing this year. I'm pretty sure we're one of the only top business schools that does it, if not the only one that does it. So something that's, I would say, incredibly attractive if you're looking to have lower costs in general. But I will say, just as far as navigating the process, the financial aid office, and anybody feel free to jump in, the financial aid office at SOM has been incredibly helpful. So they pretty much do the whole process for you, where they contact the VA. There is some paperwork that you give them, but then they handle it from there. They ensure that your aid is given to you through your tuition, and that's all annotated on everything that you get as far as statements from the university. So that was all done through the financial aid office. Now, there is some time lag, I will say, depending on when you decide to leave active duty. So for example, we have people who leave active duty as late as October, and sometimes it takes them a bit longer to get their housing stipend and everything set up because they left active duty so late, because of course the GI Bill doesn't actually start until after you've left active duty. I left in September 15th, and I started getting my benefits in November. And so I will say it doesn't take that long, but there is like a little bit of a lag there. Continue to work with the financial aid office. They're incredibly helpful. And I haven't had any issues. So I'm not sure if that answers the question exactly, but I would say that's my experience as far as the GI Bill goes.
I actually am using the GI Bill since not all of my tuition's covered, but I don't qualify for yellow ribbons since I'm still active duty. I think I remember, you might have to double check me, reading somewhere that starting in 2021 or so, active duty will be eligible to use yellow ribbon if anyone's in that boat. But the financial aid office, yeah, to echo Katie, has pretty much manage that. I have had to go through different offices for the different funding streams, but I think Yellow Ribbon, if you're fully eligible, Yale matches that, and it was up to 40 grand unless that changed, so it's pretty significant.
Yeah, so now it's unlimited. So they match all the way through. Your tuition's paid for now. I will also say that if like finances are a serious consideration for you, one thing I failed to mention is looking at the BAH at different schools, because your housing stipend is based off of how the area is zoned. And so I receive a pretty, I mean, we all do, for those on the GI Bill, receive a pretty nice housing stipend every month, enough for me personally to live off of. So I pay my rent, I pay my car insurance, and I pay all my grocery bills and gas through that one housing stipend.
And actually, if I could just piggyback off that. So we have a family of 4, and we got an entire house. So I'm eligible for the full GI Bill. And so our BH here for that is about $2,900. So we have a full house. It's 3 stories, 4 bedrooms. There's a little play set in the back, which right now I'm looking at my kids are enjoying, which is especially clutch during the quarantine. But our rent is $2,500. So New Haven is definitely more affordable than maybe some other, especially big metropolitan areas. So that's something we had not thought of before coming here. But after going from dual income before kids to like 1.5 incomes with one of the kids came to now 0.75 incomes, the cost of living here is super nice.
Yeah, I think that's a big advantage that Yale has over some of the other schools. Like, I think if you're looking at Harvard, you can like, your BH will cover like a closet in an apartment building or something like that. Whereas Yale, it's considerably more affordable, especially if you have a family. Moving on, I know there's a question. Katie mentioned she's a reservist. I'm in the National Guard also, and there's we field a lot of questions about how is managing both the National Guard or the reserves and your time in the school. And so if anybody wants to address that, that'd be a great.
I can start off again. So I thought it was incredibly manageable. I will say I recommend to people who are interested in going into the Reserves or National Guard to go through at least in the Army, we go through a recruiter before you switch over. I would recommend that you get your new unit's point of contact information and just let them know, number one, that you're on your way, but number two, just that you're going to be a full-time student, that you're going to be recruiting for a full-time job or for an internship and then a full-time job. I would say most Reserve and National Guard units are fairly understanding of that because they recognize that, number one, you have no income right now, so you need to focus on making sure you can get an income. But also, like, everybody in that unit for the most part has a full-time job, and so they understand that, like, that's the priority. So I had no issues as far as that went with my unit, recognizing that there was going to be maybe a weekend, but I had to make up another time because I couldn't make it due to a recruiting event or something like that. And so that's my one recommendation, but I would say I've been able to balance it just fine with no issues.
Yeah, I've also, I have to go probably a little bit more than just your typical drill weekend just to kind of maintain quote unquote flying currencies. And the school's been super helpful. If I have to, I typically try to schedule my going to work on a Friday since we typically don't have classes here on Friday. There is group work, so it's not like Friday's a quote unquote free day, especially your first 2 quarters here. But if I do have to go to my reserve unit and miss class, I typically go to AASL or Academic Affairs office, tell them I'm going to miss class. They're super helpful. And usually even if I give them enough advance warning, they'll even talk to the professor, have the professor record class so that I can go back later on and actually view class, not miss too much material.
Great. And I would just say, so in the COVID response, I got activated. So I'm doing like 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. night shifts at a local like Camp Net, like 30 minutes away, and working with Dean Scully, who is like the Academic Affairs and Student Life Dean. has been super easy. Yale has been really supportive in that. And so just know there is a chance that you could get activated. That might throw a wrench in your plans. But Yale is really great about working with you to make sure that you can continue on in your schooling path and stuff like that. So one question I'm going to move on to now is what is your favorite class that you've taken so far and why?
Okay, so I'll start again because we're quiet. So I have two favorites, which is kind of cheating, but one's at SOM and the other one is not SOM. So my favorite class at SOM was an elective called America's Future Role in the Global Economy. It was taught by Jeffrey Garten and Bob Hormats. It was an incredibly interesting class. The format's a little different. We met once a week. Usually classes at SOM meet twice a week. This class met once a week for 3 hours, so kind of a long class compared to normal SOM classes, but we discussed exactly the title of the class, which is America's Future Role in the Global Economy. It has shifted a lot since class has finished, but I met a lot of really interesting people. The other cool thing about the fact that we can take classes elsewhere is that means that other students from different schools can also come to SOM and take classes. So you get the perspective from a lot of different places. We had some FES students in that class, some Jackson students in that class. And so it was really neat to be able to hear their perspectives as well. My favorite class that I have not taken at SOM is the leadership class I discussed earlier with General McChrystal. Also co-taught with Chris Fussell, the president of the McChrystal Group, and one of his staff members when he was commanding. So those are my two favorite.
Yeah, I can go next. So like Katie, don't have like one specific. So I guess I'll rattle off three. So maybe recency bias, but two of the classes, one I'm currently taking, I'm kind of a nerd about like quantitative methods stuff. So really enjoying this class called causal inference. Just about how do you say definitively that X causes Y, right? And what are some of the assumptions that you make when you go through some sort of statistical analysis and whatever. Second would be policy modeling, which is taught by Ed Kaplan. He's gotten a lot of traction now because he is like one of the top guys for probability modeling. So when you look at COVID stuff, he's helping Connecticut State as well as the US government sort of model what do we think is going to happen and what should be the policy recommendations. And then third, I'll say one of the classes I took last year through Jackson was with Ambassador Ryan Crocker, who's the ambassador to Iraq, Afghanistan, I think Kuwait, Syria, a few other really top-notch places, Pakistan, and just his breadth and depth of knowledge with regards to the Middle East was like astounding.
For me, I would say I kind of have, so I actually really enjoyed every class I've taken so far. I think it's probably more of a case of simple minds, simple pleasures. But I think right now, if I had to pick two classes or one class that I'm going to turn into two, one it's called the executive, and it kind of ties all your core classes together. And it's really nice to see how everything you've been beating your head against the wall for the past 6-7 months comes together. And then also right now I'm taking a class in supply chain management, which is really interesting right now because, you know, for the past 20-30 years, the entire world's been trying to go to this lean just-in-time model. Now with COVID and all these shelter in places happening, there's a paradigm shift where people are thinking maybe instead of lean supply chains, we need to think of robust supply chains. So it's actually a pretty pertinent class to what's going on today.
Okay, I kept cutting in and out, so sorry if I repeat. My internet is unstable, but I forgot to mention I'm a first year. Most of my classes have been core classes like Vipul. Pretty much enjoyed most all of them. All the professors are great. Definitely have like favorite professors. Our economics professors are really great. And And I guess in terms of like personal interest, I really enjoyed this class called Operations Engine. There was a part of the class where you play this simulation and you pretend to run a factory and you change the inputs and you compete against your classmates. And I just really enjoyed like learning about process management. But besides that, I think a class we're taking right now, State and Society, has been one of the more meaningful classes in terms of like right now we're reading a case study on the Israel-Palestine conflict and businesses' roles in that. And then our class a couple days ago was about the apartheid and how businesses played a role in the transition of political policies in South Africa. So I think that's probably the most meaningful class for me.
Okay, thank you. So now let's move on to some post-MBA type stuff. And what has your experience recruiting been here at Yale? And with that, if you could touch on if there are companies that are specifically looking for vets, or what your experience is with the vet club and recruiting has been.
Sure. So Katie doesn't have to start first. I will start first. So again, I think because I'm a joint degree, it might be a little bit different for me, but I did not leverage probably as much as I should have either of the career services offices of either Jackson or SOM. In terms of like recruiting stuff or searching for internships, I mostly did that through just networking with professors actually, and then just applying to stuff that looked interesting on the internet. So what I'll say, I guess, is that there is a Yale network and it's pretty robust and pretty great. And so, I mean, it's not just Yale SOM, right? Like if you reach out to someone who graduated Yale College, they will likely respond to you. And that's super helpful. So this whole concept that Katie touched on, this like greater Yale, one Yale sort of thing, it like actually works out pretty well when it comes to finding a job. And then just about the vet stuff, one analogy that someone told me before coming here that I think works really well is like as a veteran, so picture the recruiting process like you're going to a movie, right? And like you're all going to the same movie, right? But at the end of the day, you might have access to the side door. And so it might just give you a little bit of something, you know, whether that's talking to a vet that's that's currently at whatever company that you're trying to recruit for or whatever, that might just give you a little edge. But at the end of the day, you still need to perform at that interview or whatever.
Yeah, so Vipul, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. I was just gonna build off what Jason said. Like that side door analogy is spot on. A lot of companies come here and they'll have what they call diversity and inclusion events, and for that, vets usually fit the bill. Or I mean, not fit the bill, but vets are kind of considered a minority group, and so any diversity and inclusion event that happens usually includes vets. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do post MBA, so I went to pretty much every sort of event you can think of. So I went to finance. I know Apple came here, Google, Facebook, McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, Bain. These people all had vet specific or minority specific events here at Yale. But in terms of what Jason said, you know, you still need to perform at the interview. And for me, I really leverage our vets network. So Katie was a second year. I really got her help in terms of interviewing, even when she's on break. You know, she's down visiting her fiance or visiting her mom and dad, and we're still texting each other like, how can she help me, or what do you think about this, Katie? And also just alumni vets were super awesome in terms of helping us out. So we're a smaller school, and I think that's really special. Another person that Katie and I have, it's a common friend at McKinsey, he described SOM alumni as kind of a cult. Like he's like, whenever we have a corporate event, like the SOM alumni are always the ones that get together in the corner and have the most fun, and everyone kind of wants to be like them and be like, man, why are they so happy and just excited to see each other. So Yes, you still have to perform, but there's a lot of help to get you to perform. Like I didn't know anything about business when I came here, and I specifically leveraged the VETS network here to get myself up to the standard that some of these companies have for a job offer or an internship offer.
Just quickly to add to both of their comments, I will also say that the school generally, so the Vets Network and the Veterans Club, I think, are incredibly supportive. But I will also say there are a few things that SOM specifically offers. One of those being that you don't pay fees for professional clubs. So there are some clubs like Hockey Club where you have to pay for the gear and you have to pay for ice time. But a club like Consulting Club, for example, which is something that I use very heavily, you don't have to pay for it, which apparently is unusual for business schools, which I didn't know when I was applying, actually. It just happened to be the case that I went to SOM and didn't have to pay. But I found that to be super useful because it seemed to me like that meant the students wanted to be there and wanted to be helpful. There's also specific, again, to consulting, because that's what I did, case teams. So I was a case team leader this year, so I helped people learn how to do case interviews along with some behaviorals. And then additionally, I will say that SOM's CDO, the Career Development Office, while I did not use them that much, similar to Jason, I will say that they did have an event that I found to be really useful as a vet, and that was a mock interview. So you could sign up for a mock interview where they actually bring external consultants actually in to do interviews with you and to sort of practice how an interview goes. Not necessarily, I would say it's similar to interviewing for an MBA, but there's definitely a different twist for interviewing for an internship or a full-time job. And so I thought that that was a really useful event that the CDO put on for students, and you just signed up and went. It was like no fee or anything. It was part of sort of the experience at SOM.
Yeah, and before we move on to the next question, just to speak on some of my experiences, I think there's a lot of opportunities that become available at Yale. One, just from having the Yale name, which is great, but two, location-wise, it's close enough to New York City to be able to do things in the city. It's also like within 2 hours of Boston, basically. So there's a lot of opportunity in both of those cities. So during the school year, for about 4 months, I was doing a venture capital internship in New York City while going to school on Fridays. You only have class from Monday to Thursday, so I would go into the city on Fridays. And like, I'm from Fairbanks, Alaska, and so being able to go work in Manhattan on Fridays was like a eye-opening experience and an opportunity that I never would have expected. But Yale's positioning and its brand really helped me to get that internship. I think what Katie was talking about with the clubs thing is a good transition point into what are some other clubs besides the Vets clubs that you're in? How have those helped you? What's been your experience there? And anybody but Katie, go ahead and start.
Yeah, so I was in consulting club, and I pretty much signed up for every club that was out there just to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I went to the first finance club meeting, and I realized that I'm probably not a good fit for a finance job. But pretty much you can do whatever you want here. And also, if there's something that interests you that we don't have a club for, so one thing somebody talked about was potentially starting like a space and an aerospace club. Like, that's something you can do. And funding for clubs is pretty generous here. So yeah, I pretty much did consulting club and Vets club because everything else, if I had a free moment any other time, I spent it with my family. But I know plenty of people, like there's like a poker club, hockey's a pretty big thing. There's a wine club, there's like a coffee club. So pretty much anything that you have an interest in, there's probably a club for it.
Yeah, and even there's more clubs than you have time to fully participate in, but there's no limit on how many clubs you can sign up for. And I've definitely crashed a lot of like club lunch events where they have speakers come in and talk about a specific topic. And I'm like, well, that sounds interesting. Like, I've never been to this club's meetings before, but I want to hear the speakers. So I just hop in. But I guess I have most fun in hockey. I think that's like a great way to release steam on a Wednesday night, and The ice rink is only like 2 blocks from the School of Management, and it's an amazing ice rink. I think there's maybe 100 people on the club, and it's just I know how to skate and play hockey, teach those that don't know, and you don't need any experience. And I've had a really good time on the ice.
Yeah. So I guess I'll close this out. I think you're going to find if you come here that you will have more opportunities than you know what to do with. So, it's and like I've been through this twice once with the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences and once with SOM. It's like, oh, I'm going to sign up for all this stuff. Like signed up for data analytics, signed up for design and innovation, signed up for a bunch of other clubs this year. And just honestly, like there's so many different speaker series and things to do that while I do go to some of that stuff, it's hard for me to consider myself like a core member of anything other than the Vets Club right now. I would say that the other thing that I do is just some of the stuff with Jackson as well. So there's sort of some social offense and more I guess like debate sort of society stuff that we do. Again, getting back at like this social discourse sort of thing.
Awesome. And I saw a question earlier that was like specifically towards entrepreneurship or business strategy, which, I mean, there are definitely clubs dealing with that. There's PE and private equity and venture capital if you're interested in that side of entrepreneurship, or there's a startup specific club, which I'm one of the leaders of, that is like specifically looking at startups or entrepreneurship through acquisition, which is a really cool thing. So like if you can think of a topic relating to business or like having fun, then there's going to be a club there for you. Okay, moving on to workload. If I could just have a couple of you chime in on how you feel the workload relates, maybe coming from active duty or coming from whatever you were doing before. How's the workload here? How are you able to manage it?
I think, or Vipul, why don't you go, and then I'll piggyback off of you.
Yeah, so I mean, the workload for me was high just because when we moved here, our kids were 18 months at the time. We had twins, and also there was a mix-up with my separation. There was something that some doctor found on some of my medical work that screwed up my transition to the reserve. So, but that's a story for another day. But so balancing family and school, I thought was difficult. But with that said, my classmates were so understanding. The fact that we had young kids and, sometimes I needed to be home, they kind of helped me overcome that. But also the school was awesome. Another thing that you can get here is you can get tutors. So I was a little older than the average student here. It had been 12 years since I was in school. So trying to get the gears churning again took some time. So I went to AASL and asked for tutors in each of my class. And they assigned me a second year who was, in the top 5% of their class the previous year. And at no cost from my pocket, we would sit down and go over material, and that really helped me kind of catch back up. So yeah, it is a high course load, especially if you really want to do well, you might have to put in time, but it's definitely manageable. And there are tons of resources here for help.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it would have been different if I were recruiting for consulting or investment banking that first semester. The feedback from a bunch of people is that the workload plus recruiting tends to get pretty heavy. I didn't have that. I thought the workload was very manageable. I think your veteran experience or your military experience sets you up really, really well, probably ahead of most of your peers when it comes to just like time management stuff and prioritization. Like it's sort of like being a staff officer. Like you just got to get B's on things and like figure out which ones are, the glass balls that you can't drop. That's all. I would say so surprisingly this semester and this quarter has gotten like super busy for me, but still, managing my course load plus a part-time consulting gig with the World Bank plus trying to help out the city of New Haven with a bunch of their COVID response stuff. Still able to get a little workout in and manage my time. But that being said, I don't have a family like Vipul does. So.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a transition between, you know, being active duty and being a full-time student. And so for me personally, it feels like vacation is you don't have to worry about like getting called in the middle of the night and having phone calls whenever, and you can just focus on school. But I'm not recruiting. And I think if you talk to different people who are recruiting, it runs, from what I hear, like a whole gamut of people who probably do a coffee chat like every day. And then some people who may have only done one coffee chat and one interview. So it's really kind of like your personal approach, what your goals are, and what you're recruiting for. And I probably shouldn't speak to it since I'm not recruiting, but generally it seems like everyone, you know, everything works out. Everyone gets an internship and a job offer. So I think, you know, when you talk about workload, you have to talk about recruiting and the social aspect, because it's all time management. And you're probably aware of the grading policy. Like the grading scale is it's curved, and you've probably heard like grades don't matter. And you know, to an extent, it's you want to get your money's worth. You're paying a lot of money to go to school, so you want to like put time into academics. But on the flip side, you need to make sure that you're balancing that with having a life and your other priorities for recruiting social life. So it's kind of a matter of how much effort you choose to put in terms of.
Great. So before I think we'll do one more question just to wrap up, just to kind of chime on to what the other panelists were saying. I think you have, unlike the military where you may, you know, be on 12-hour shifts, or, you know, you're deployed and you don't have much control. The workload aspect here is, I mean, it's a Yale master's program. So there is like a challenging education aspect to it. But for the most part, what I found is you can be as busy as you want to be. And so if you want to go hard in the paint as far as clubs go, then great. If you're going to recruit like crazy, then great. But if you're doing too much, you can kind of pull back, which is an option that at least I didn't have in the military. So as we wrap up, we're going to do one more question, but I just want to say, if you have more admissions related questions, I know the admissions team is really happy to answer all of those, and you can email their admissions email, which I'm going to ask them to put into the chat box. And then if you have vet club specific questions, I know that the vet club would be happy to help answer them. And so you can go online to the vet club website. And if you Google like Yale Vet Club, it should come up, and ask us questions, because I know we want to be as transparent as possible. So as the last question, if each of you wouldn't mind just talking about what's the one thing you wish you would have known before coming to business school, or you wish you would have done ahead of time.
Well, you know, my first year is almost over and it's flown by, and probably everyone will agree that 2 years isn't really that long. And you can really get serious FOMO being at probably any business school, just because there's so much going on and it's impossible to do everything. So on the one hand, like, don't go all out, don't kill yourself, don't feel like you're missing out if you don't do something. But on the other hand, take advantage of stuff. So I know that's contradictory. So, I mean, do with that what you will, but I think just kind of keep that in the back of your head. Like, what do you want to get out of your experience? What are you going to regret if you don't participate in? I like personally feel like maybe I could have done more social things and less studying, but that's different for everyone.
So for me, I guess one of the things that I'm really happy I did before coming here was actually just taking some time off. I majored in music and was an infantry officer, so like didn't really have the business skills, I guess, that I thought some of my peers would have. And I got the advice, hey, I was thinking about doing maybe like an internship before coming here, or doing something else, taking some classes or something like that. I'm really happy that I did not do that and just like chilled out for a little bit. And then I guess another thing, when coming here, actually being here now, I think I would have not listened to people when they talked about, oh, you're going to be so busy, like you're not going to be able to take X number of classes. And really kind of, I guess this goes back to what Elena was saying, which is, make the most out of your experience and realize that like you are likely not going to have a catastrophic failure here. Like if you get a bad mark here and there in class, like really doesn't matter that much. Like obviously don't fail anything, but like it honestly doesn't matter. Just think about the learning that you're going to get and trying to soak up like as much knowledge as possible. And that includes like social events too.
I wish I just, I was really excited to come here, and I can say that this has exceeded my expectations by a lot, and kind of like what Jason said, maybe just take some time off before coming here. But I think this place is special. I always say like some of my most fond memories are on deployment, but it's because of who I was deployed with. And I really enjoyed Yale because the people. Classes are great, but I've learned so much more outside of class, just sitting down and talking with all my classmates, and especially like the international students and people that come from these quote unquote non-traditional backgrounds. There's just a lot of knowledge and experience there that you can help use to get great depth for your MBA experience. So I didn't realize how much value the actual people would bring to the school.
Yeah, sorry, went a little out of order, I guess. I would say, to echo a lot of what everybody else has said, something that I wish I would have known is a bit more like on the tactical level, is actually understanding how to take classes outside of SOM and doing the research in advance. So it's kind of like making the most out of your experience, but like actually making the most out of your experience. Because I think that people get very used to being at SOM instead of like branching out and being willing to go take classes elsewhere. And I wish I would have taken more classes outside of SOM instead of just the ones that I did, because that opportunity is there and it is really once in a lifetime. So that's something I wish I would have done a bit more of. But then I would say that like I've also really enjoyed my experience, so it's hard to say. But to echo everybody else, it's weird to say that grades don't matter. I think for a lot of people, like it doesn't really sink in. But I will say that the school, the way the grading system is set up, makes it so that you have opportunities to connect with people socially and then also to recruit. So like they try to help you prioritize that school is important, but more importantly, to like everybody else's point, it's the learning that's important. And learning doesn't just happen inside the classroom. So.
Thanks. And thanks to all the panelists. I really appreciate you guys taking your lunch hour and helping with this. I would just say one of the things I was thinking about, a lot of vets I feel are nervous about applying to like the top schools, of which Yale is one, because they think they're going to be behind the curve. They think they're going to be so far behind. They're like, we're a music major, could you imagine, in undergrad, or a German major like me, and all they do is machine gun math or whatever. And you show up, and I think what you realize is everybody brings different strengths, and typically the vets really have a lot of experiences that other classmates don't have. Like most people haven't led a company of 150 soldiers or even a squad of 12 or whatever. Many haven't led anybody but themselves. And so you're going to bring a level of experience that that other people don't have and that they need. And then likewise, they're going to bring experiences that you don't have and that you need. Like apparently you don't need to spend all of your money to get more money. Apparently you have to budget or something like that. I don't know, still learning. But I just want to say, like, believe in yourselves. It's worth applying. It's worth coming here. Admitted students, we're stoked to see you next year. And for those who are thinking about it, it's worth just taking the step to apply. So again, thank you. Contact admissions with any other admissions questions, Vets Club for any other vets questions, and have a great day. Thanks.